Now, Roger, typically you and I, when we do the film marketing segment, choose a film we love and then discover afterwards that the marketing campaign is quite exceptional and a source of inspiration. For this film, not only do we love the film, but we knew in advance that the marketing campaign was just genius. And I just can't wait to talk to you and get your reaction on Skyfall, the 23rd James Bond movie released in 2012.
Wow, Pascal. Skyfall, you're absolutely right. Phenomenal movie. Rewatched it last week. Just coincidentally, not in preparation for this, but obviously helped prepare for this. Great film. And yes, I knew a lot about the marketing that was happening because it's only 9 years ago. But when I was looking into it in a little bit more detail over the last few days, it was one of those rabbit hole times when you just dive in and think, oh my goodness, I didn't realise they'd done this. And look at the amount of money that was spent here. It truly is one of the most interesting and uplifting marketing campaigns. And it's not just the distributors of the film that were doing the marketing for this. They had all sorts of product placement partners, which were also running incredibly expensive campaigns as well at the same time. So the world was flooded with Skyfall stuff.
Absolutely. And this is what's going to be exciting because, once again, I reckon there's a lot of little lessons in there for all of us as marketers, but they exploited events such as the Olympic Games. They also took advantage of the fact that this was the 50th anniversary of the James Bond franchise. 62 was Dr. No, and 2012 was Skyfall. But also, as you say, were the partners. So what we're going to do, we're going to talk about the film element or the film distributors' effort. Then we'll talk about the partners. But before we get into that, am I right in guessing that Skyfall is perhaps one of your favorites with Daniel Craig as at the helm?
Yeah, and this is interesting because everybody raves about Casino Royale. That was the reboot, wasn't it? That was Daniel Craig's first film, and it was a great film, But at the same time, they made a conscious decision to maybe move away from some of the cheesier elements of Bond films. So in Casino Royale, we didn't have Q, we didn't have Miss Moneypenny, we didn't even have the traditional opener where the sort of circle goes across the front and he walks along and shoots a bullet at the screen. And to a certain extent, I always thought, that's a little bit disappointing. They've gone away from the James Bond standard, but maybe they needed to do that to genuinely reboot it. And I think that for me, Skyfall started to reintroduce some of those more traditional Bond elements, like we meet Q again for the first time, we meet Miss Moneypenny, and then, there's maybe a few of the quips starting to come back. So it felt to me like it was more of a traditional James Bond film than Casino Royale was, but I didn't think they took it so far that they went cheesy and as some of the poorer entries to the canon earlier on. So for me, it's almost like the archetypal James Bond film of the Daniel Craig era.
What is interesting about the work with Daniel Craig, again, as James Bond, I find Casino Royale and Skyfall are the strongest. I'm really not sure about Quantum of Solace, and I was very disappointed by Spectre. There was something just didn't work for me. And I'm thinking, so is that what it takes? That every other James Bond is better, so we can really look forward to No Time to Die. In terms of this film as well, just to give us a segue into the marketing, the one thing that they did away with, which I thought was very interesting, was usually there's always a bit of a love affair, or there's always the Bond girl that kind of stands out and becomes almost an accomplice in the story. And here that didn't take place. I mean, there was definitely an attractive woman as part of the storyline, but there wasn't that element of the love affair.
Yeah, again, this fascinates me because I would probably have to go back and check, but I think the first of all of the James Bond films up until Daniel Craig finished with him snogging a woman in some exotic location, or in a speedboat marooned in the middle of the ocean, or in the middle of a desert or something. It always had that ending where he went off into the sunset with the Bond girl from that film. But all of the Daniel Craig movies, the first three of them, end with him without the girl, because in Casino Royale, Vesper Lynd dies, unfortunately, in Quantum of Solace. And I agree with you, Quantum of Solace was a bit of a mess for me, but that film ends with him just walking away into the snow. And Skyfall, again, finishes with him in M's office, the new M, saying, yep, let's get back to work. But I did wonder whether almost the Judi Dench M was effectively the Bond girl, the surrogate Bond girl in this movie, because obviously the latter half of the movie is all about James Bond trying to protect her from Mr. Silver, who was the villain. And she was not a Bond girl in the traditional sense, but she was a very close, almost mother-like figure. I don't know whether that's the right way.
Yeah, I think that's true, because
it.
What we do in Skyfall is explore elements of his younger years. We know so little. I must confess, I've not read any of the books, so maybe there's more information for people who are big fans of Bond and read the books as well as watched the films. But yeah, I think for me, Skyfall works because of all these elements that have been taken out, and what's left is just an incredible, thrilling story. And of course, an amazing villain. Javier Bardem just does an amazing job.
Yeah, I mean, that story, as he comes down in this lift, and the lift's right in the back of the shot, and Bond sat on a chair in the front of the shot, and he basically walks from the lift to Bond very slowly and tells this story about an island with rats on it and how they put the rats into a box. And he just delivers the story as he walks very menacingly and very slowly forward, and that is a mesmerising part of the film. No action, it's just a monologue, bit of storytelling, but the way he delivered it was really quite chilling.
Before we move on to the marketing, is there maybe one standout moment or scene for you in the Skyfall?
Actually, I'm always a big fan of the pre-credit sequences in James Bond films, and again, this one is superb. And there's the bit which it just made me laugh, and again, it was that sort of return to a little bit of the sort of the one-liners, the cheesy bit. So he's trying to get the villain who's on this train, and there's a digger. I don't even know how the digger got there, but there's a digger on the train, and he uses the digger to sort of latch onto this train, and the train's falling apart, and he basically jumps from one carriage to the other, and he lands in the middle of this carriage, and the carriage is disintegrating, and he just takes a moment to adjust his cufflinks before he walks forward. I just thought that is an absolutely archetypal Bond moment.
Yeah, that's absolutely the whole chase around Istanbul and the train. For me, the bit that stood out, I mean, they're all amazing, particularly the last chapter when they go to Scotland and we discover what Skyfall stands for. But the bit in Shanghai with the player with lights, neon lights against glass panes, and trying to obviously get to the baddie and so on. I thought the whole cinematography, would have been a nightmare practically to film, but also just look stunning and mesmerizing. So that was great. So what we're going to do, let's start with the film marketing efforts of the filmmakers themselves. And we're going to talk about the partners. So it all began almost to the date a year before the film was released with Twitter. The official 007 Twitter account, of Facebook account, started to announce something was coming. And that is one thing that I like about the whole Bond franchise, is that they keep social media going even after the film. You know, I've been quite critical, haven't we, in the past, of people do social media for a few months and then literally walk away from the lot. Literally on Twitter and Facebook, even to the last week, Roger, they are still promoting Skyfall with behind the scenes stuff, with extract from the film, with stills from the film, with anniversaries, birthdays of the actors. It really feels like Skyfall is kept alive even after all these years, because in 2021 they are still using Twitter and Facebook to promote it.
Yeah, and I think I'm right in saying that Skyfall was probably the first Bond film which was a major social media campaign. And as you say, they started the activity 12 months before the film. And that's remarkable, a remarkable way of building up the tension and building up the anticipation for this next James Bond film. And I guess the gap between Quantum of Solace and Skyfall was a little bit longer than normal. And what a great way to use a new media to start getting that anticipation going. And they got thousands and thousands and thousands of hits, and they really used it quite well. And I think the lesson for me is that, we quite often are critical of people who say, oh, look, here's the latest shiny new toy, Clubhouse or whatever it might be, TikTok, and we just need to jump onto it because you have to. You could almost say, well, is that not what the distributors were doing? Oh, here's Twitter. It's only been around for a little while. Let's dive in and use it. But they used it so well, and I think that's the lesson. The shiny new toys are okay as long as it genuinely gets to your audience, and your audience are there. And I think that they used it spot on, in my opinion.
If you go on Facebook for people who are interested, literally go on the official Facebook page, there is a search function which makes it very easy. And just put 2012 as the year, and literally you can analyze and review the campaign, step by step. But more importantly, my point earlier, they are talking about Skyfall as early as last week, which I think is very, very important. But you're right, they had a 12-month campaign on socials, and then finally fans were rewarded with the first teaser trailer in May 2012.
Yeah, and the trailer is quite dark. It chooses quite a lot of the darker shots from the film, and it almost creates this mystique around James Bond. It includes the bit with him jumping into the carriage and adjusting his cufflinks, which again is very, very memorable. But you do want to see the film because it's showing there's something a little bit different going on here.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Bond unhinged and reacting to the term Skyfall. And that's what, to me, actually, the teaser trailer works better than the normal trailers, which we're going to talk about in a moment. I just like the intrigue. But from May, bear in mind that the release was late October, November 2012. Then soon after, they piggyback, of course you would, the 2012 Olympic Games. And we have this all incredible moment where James Bond is essentially escorting the Queen for her to officially open the games, and we see all of us on national television, perhaps internationally, we see the Queen jumping off the helicopter, opening a Union Jack parachute, very much like in one of the old James Bond with Roger Moore. But that went, talk about viral marketing.
Oh, that was an absolute genius moment, and I love that hark back to the earlier film. I think it was Spy Who Loved Me.
Yeah, you're right.
That had that in. I mean, it was great, and I think I remember watching the opening of the Olympics purely because I wanted to see this scene with the Queen that had been teased in advance.
Now, perhaps, unfortunately for the marketers, the video of Bond and the Queen jumping off the helicopter has been viewed more often than the trailers themselves, but that's the way it goes. So the day after, we have the TV campaign, 30-second spots, but soon after we have the international trailer, much longer than the teaser trailer, understandably so, and in my view, not as good because it gives a lot away. Literally the movie is summarized almost chronologically, and we can see what's going to happen to Bond, but it still doesn't take away the pleasure of watching the 2.5-hour film. But I thought the international trailer could have done with more intrigue, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't like it when the trailers effectively give the whole plot away, and I think this one did. So the teaser trailer for me was much more teasing, I guess.
No, absolutely. Then, so the social media continues, the PR, the press, and so on. But of course, in October 2012, a month, give or take, before the release of the film, we have Adele's song, Skyfall, blasted all over radio stations around the world. And what a song.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, as you said before, it was released on the 50th anniversary of the original James Bond film, Dr. No. They called it James Bond Day. To me, it was one of the best theme tunes we've had for quite a long time. For those musically minded as well, I think it's one of the first James Bond theme tunes for quite a while, which actually includes the hook of the James Bond theme, da, 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 in the actual melody of the song. And if you go way back to From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, they always had that hook within the song to remind you that even though this was sung by Tom Jones or Shirley Bassey or whoever it was still a Bond theme. And they sort of stopped doing that for a while. And I think that Skyfall was the first one for 30 years maybe which actually had snippets of the actual James Bond theme in the actual theme song for the film.
And therefore, I mean, people love the song. I don't think anybody was unhappy with the song. If anything, it was really what you wanted for Bond films. And then a few weeks later, the really extravagant opening of the movie, the first Bond actually to be shown on IMAX screen in the history of the Bond movies at the Royal Albert Hall, which just stunning premiere. And then the movie has success, the Blu-ray is released soon after and so on. Now, you could argue, Roger, that's a pretty good campaign, but no, we also have the partners who add in another layer of excitement, from drinks companies to perfume to mobile phones, you name it. So I know you've done the research, so kick us off with the first partner then.
Well, I mean, this is where I said I almost went down a rabbit hole. Now, we know that product placement has always been a big thing in Bond films. You know, way back, I can remember seeing posters for British Airways in Moonraker, for example, and even more up to date when we rewatched Casino Royale recently. I noticed that the phones were Sony Ericssons, and they feature quite heavily in this film as well. But the scale of product placement within Skyfall is phenomenal, and the amount of effort that the brands behind those product placements went to support the marketing of the film are absolutely mind-blowing. So, for example, Heineken were one of the product placements within the film. You'll notice Bond swigging from a bottle of Heineken. Now, they paid something like £28 million for that product placement in that film. And actually, that covered a third of the production costs of the film itself. Just think about that for a moment. One bit of product placement covered a third of the production costs of the film. And we see all sorts of different things like that. So you've got the Tom Ford tailored suits, you've got the Sony hardware all the way through the film. Heineken I've mentioned. It's just incredible. And each of those people then went on to do their own massive marketing campaign around that product placement. So we had a campaign which was called Intelligence Gathered, which was the Sony one, where you've got TV spots with Daniel Craig as Bond being tracked by a mystery woman, and she's using Bravia TV and VAO laptops, tablets, Xperia T smartphones, all of that sort of thing. You know, the motorbike in the front of the film in the chase in Morocco, again, Honda, massive push around that. But I think, Pascal, the one that stands out for me was the Coca Cola tie-in.
Yeah.
They came up with the most genius bit of work. So they wanted to unlock the 007 in you. They wanted you to be James Bond for a moment. And they set up this thing in a station in Europe, and they were offering free tickets to go and see Skyfall. And it was quite simply a Coca-Cola drinks machine. And when you put your money in, if you wanted to play this game, it would give you 70 seconds to run to a specific part of that station in order to get your free tickets for Skyfall. Now, if you didn't get there in 70 seconds, you didn't get your ticket. If you did, you got your ticket. And so you've got all these people chasing through a station, just like James Bond would chase a villain through a station to get their tickets. And of course, they filmed people doing this and did a montage of this and put this thing up on YouTube. And again, like the Olympic video, this one went absolutely viral again. I mean, what an absolutely genius idea. And they obviously spent a lot of money on it. But to me, Skyfall was a marketing effort by the distributors, but what was remarkable about it was things like this being done by the product placement partners, and some of their executions were off the scale.
And what was interesting for me, it felt as though, because, you know, for me, with the Bond franchise, it's probably the only movies that get away with product placement to the degree that it does. It's almost as if we are complicit in accepting it. But the brands had immense fun with their marketing. So it's not as if it was, well, we are sponsoring Bonds. If you take Heineken, if we take Sony, if you take Honda, they did adverts using their brand, but at the end, it was the call to action was to go and see the film. It wasn't to go and buy more beers or buy more computers. And I thought that was really, really elegant in the execution, even though it was dead obvious. So with the Heineken one, we follow the story of this young man looking a little like a spy, and he's being chased by a baddie on the train. And there's little nods to all the previous James Bond movie, including Dr. No. And at the end, he reaches the bar inside the train, where we see James Bond himself, Daniel Craig, giving him a bottle of Heineken and disappearing, leaving it to deal with the baddies. I thought that was very clever. Sony, you mentioned it, this woman tracking him, and at the end he says, looking for someone, and using different... At the time as well, I had a Sony Vaio, and I felt so good that I had the same laptop as James Bond, I can't tell you. But with Honda, what they did very cleverly as well was the adverts in and around mechanics targeting obviously motorbike lovers, and they were part of the team that put together the Bond in Motion exhibition, and celebrating 50 years of Bond vehicles at Bewley, not far from London, and they use it for a 4-month campaign. So everybody played the game. It wasn't like they were trying to say, right, well, let's do more of the sales push using Bond. They were saying they were complicit in creating supplementary form of marketing that fitted superbly with the traditional, let's call it that, filmmakers' effort. And that, to me, that's what made the Skyfall marketing campaign special, because everybody was working together, pushing the movie in the same direction.
And it makes me realise now the consequences of all the delays that have been applied to No Time to Die, because I've read, there's a similar level of product placement within this film, and presumably there's brands out there who have got campaigns maybe similar to Coca Cola, Honda did before. They've got things ready to go, and they've had to hold back on them for obvious reasons. And I believe that certain scenes within the film have had to be reshot or even after effected in some ways to update the products that were in the film when it was originally filmed 2 years ago to the more up-to-date version, so that the product placements can still work.
Yeah. So 2012, what a special year for Bond, 50-year anniversary. The games taking place in London with the eyes of the world onto you. And of course, just to wrap up our review of this campaign, it was only natural that Visit Britain would then milk it for another year after that. Bond is Great Britain was the slogan that went around pretty much everywhere. And we had, of course, that campaign that sustained it. And it just feels like, not only, like I said, is it a great movie, we love the movie, but I just had enough recollection of the marketing campaign to know that this was a great addition to film marketing.
Yeah, no, this has been so exciting, because I don't think I've ever come across a film before where it was such an amazing collaboration between the distributors and their partners. A whole plethora of different marketing campaigns targeting different products and different people, but all coming together with the one aim of getting people to sit in a cinema and watch this film Skyfall.
Yeah, and that's the lesson. We can all take advantage of anniversaries. We can all take advantage of events around this. We can all bring together partners to kind of join on this marketing push. We just need to engage that imagination. So thanks again, Roger, for doing the research on the Skyfall. It's been a pleasure to discuss it with you. And of course, I'll be watching it tonight.
Absolutely right.
Everyone, this has been episode 49 of Two Geeks and a Marketing Podcast. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. Please leave comments, suggestions in the usual places. Until the next one, go out there and make sure your marketing is done right. I was Pascal Fintoni, and he was Roger Edwards.